Ibn al-Athir also shared their observation on these, this is the word to represent them, the Norse, a term first employed in the 10th century translated as fair-haired, rubby-complexioned population of Central, Eastern and Northern Europe. GG. GG, guys. This whole thing was to say that the Vikings were not blonde and they were Muslims. And now a Muslim from the period is telling us that they were fair-haired. Checkmate, you idiots! So they were tall and fair-haired. Does that sound familiar to you? Oh, this is glorious. Let me welcome you to the nonsense reality, the alternate reality of the Muslim Vikings once again. So the other day, as we were saying, we talked about the statements that the Vikings were not blonde, the Vikings were not Scandinavian, the Vikings were not pagan, I guess, at this point. So anyways, we talked about the nonsense, but how did they get to the nonsense is what we're going to explore today. But it will make you facepalm monumentally. It will make you facepalm because after you see, oh, so this is what they based all that nonsense on? Yes. Then, after we gather the information, you will see that when we read this other one, which is the one that has the message, the political message, then we'll be able to be like, oh, yeah, they're saying this, but now I know it's nonsense. And without further ado, let's go. For Allah inscription found on Viking era ring. When you purchase through links on our websites, we may earn an affiliate commission. Do I get the ring? It is a pretty ring, I'll give him that, and for those who don't know, it's silver. They ran some deep tests, I looked into it, full silver, and in fact the main body of the item is in an excellent state of preservation, relatively intact considering the age. They used to think that this was an amethyst, it's not, it's an actual form of lime glass, which was very popular, by the way, in the Norse area. Those Scandinavians that apparently were not Scandinavians, but anyways, they loved glass. It was considered something pretty that they loved. Ancient tales about Viking expeditions to Islamic countries had some elements of truth, according to recent analysis of a ring recovered from a 9th century Swedish grave. So already we can kind of disassemble this situation. What tales are they talking about? It's the sagas, because the sagas do talk about some Viking explorers that reached some areas, possibly even in the Black Sea. There is a possibility. No one is contesting this. And in fact, this article is not too bad, but the articles that push the nonsense, they always follow a pattern, and it's the following. They tell you a truth, they follow it by a half-truth, so now they gained your trust, and then they follow it with a lie. That was the intention all along, that they want to put in your head. They don't start with a lie, because otherwise you could easily recognize it. That's the method. Another thing that it's important, this was found in a grave, so it adds a whole new layer of interpretation that they completely disregarded, of course, which is that of funerary kits. So what do we usually find in funerary kits? What type of items? Does it indicate the status of the individual? Featuring a pink-violet colored stone with an inscription that reads, "For Allah," or "To Allah." The silver ring was found during the 1872-1895 excavation of grave fields at the Viking Age trading center of Birka, some 15.5 miles west of Stockholm. Now, you might think, but wait, Metatron, if this is a discovery from the late 19th century, why are they surfacing it now? Well, the real reason is just for politics. It's useful, and so they use it. But the other reason is that apparently they only recently managed to decipher the inscription. It was recovered from a rectangular wooden coffin, along with jewelry, brooches, and remains of clothes. Although the skeleton was completely decomposed, the objects indicated it was a female burial dating to about 850 AD. I appreciate that they are using Anno Domini Nostri Jesu Christi. Amen. Sorry, stronger than me after all the BCE CE that I have to hear. Catalogued at the Swedish Museum History in Stockholm as a signet ring consisting of gilded silver set, they were wrong, it's only silver, with an amethyst, wrong again, inscribed with the word Allah in Arabic writing. It's the only ring with it's the only ring. Please remember this sentence when you go and look at the previous article that we read the other day that said that because of this, now we know that the Vikings were Muslim. the only ring with an Arabic inscription found in Scandinavia. It is the only one that has a clear indication of any affiliation with Islam, which I would like to remind the idiots that push the nonsense is a religion, not an ethnicity. You can be a Muslim and be anything, to be fair with you. So the whole other segment where they are like, oh, this grave or this thing demonstrates that the Vikings were Muslims, not white. It's a ridiculous statement because the two things are not mutually exclusive regardless. I can just tell you, spoiler alert, spoiler if it even makes sense, 9th century, whatever. Spoiler alert, they either bought it or they stole it. There's nothing that indicates any conversion. Yeah, there we go. Open quotes. Most likely we will never know the exact meaning behind the inscription, find a little truth, or where and why it was done. Close quotes. The researchers wrote, conveniently, this is never featured, never, in any of the copycats articles that are pushing the idea that the Vikings were not Scandinavians. We need to stop saying that they were white. We need to stop saying that they were not Muslims. They never mention this, which is the one thing that the reason... It's always like this. When you dig deep, you see, oh, cherry-picked. It is all complete and utter speculation. You know what the reality is? Is that when the guy stole this ring, I'm imagining this Viking guy, he probably said, oh, thanks, Loki, I got a good ring for my wife, so she's gonna be happy when I'm home, because I promised it. For the present investigation, it is enough to note that its Arabic-Islamic nature clearly links the ring and the stone to the cultural sphere of the Caliphate. Similarly to how the crosses, the silver and golden inlaid crosses that they stole from the Lindisfarne monastery, are clearly linked to Christendom and Christianity. It still doesn't make the Vikings that split the head of the monks by introducing them to the business end of their axes, doesn't make them Christian. Likewise, this recovery of this ring in the funerary context does not make those Scandinavian people less Scandinavian, and it does absolutely not make them Muslim. It's like the double standard is unbelievable. There are hundreds of Christian cups. There's so much stuff that was taken. Never have they ever said, well, you know what, maybe we should say that the early Vikings were already Christians because look at all this stuff. They find one ring, the one ring, I'm going to say this in full screen, the one ring to rule them all. Never has this word have been more appropriate. This is what this is all about. And it must have passed from the Islamic silversmith who made it to the woman buried at Berka with few, if any, owners in between. I'm still gonna put the husband here. Call it my educated guess. Open quotes. Perhaps the woman herself was from the Islamic world, and that's the nonsense. Or perhaps a Swedish Viking got the ring by trade or robbery while visiting the Islamic Caliphate. My money is on the latter, just as a matter of deductive logic and on the application of Occam razor. Thank you. Dear noble ones, if you like this video and you would like me to continue to annihilate this absolute complete utter nonsense, regardless of any possible backlash, please consider getting one of my plushies. This way you can support me bashing these lying cretins into outer space. Thank you very much. Link in the description. Come on, do it now. You know you want me to continue. Come on. Show me the fiber of your fabric. Link in the description. Everything else, guys, this is it. Like, there is no, oh my gosh, and we found all of these things telling us that in this specific village they were actually creating a freaking mosque, or in this other situation we see that the same raiders connected to this period were saying, I hope that Allah protects us during this travel, and then we found nothing. Zero. This is it. Unbelievable. So we're gonna move to this now, because now that we have read that one, this, you're gonna be able to see it in a completely different light. 5 things you didn't know about Vikings and Muslim civilization. Dating back to March 2015, news regarding the discovery of a ring found on a Viking woman in an ancient burial ground with the Arabic inscription for "To Allah" erupted in mainstream media. Muslim Viking, ladies and gentlemen. The freaking 13th warrior. So this is one traveler that talks a lot about his interactions with the Vikings. And I want to read this because it's glorious. Look at this. Ibn al-Athir also shared their observation on these, this is the word to represent them, the Norse, a term first employed in the 10th century translated as fair-haired, rubby-complexioned population of Central, Eastern and Northern Europe. GG. GG, guys. This whole thing was to say that the Vikings were not blonde. and they were Muslims. And now a Muslim from the period is telling us that they were fair-haired. That is a self-own if I've ever seen one. Checkmate, you idiots! Fair-haired. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. So they were tall and fair-haired. Does that sound familiar to you? Tall and fair-haired. Oh, this is glorious. For example, according to the 10th century explorer and geographer Ibn Rustar, so we have they were, open quotes, handsome, clean, and well-dressed. So, close quotes. And this makes sense because even Christians tell us that they were clean. I mean, Christians don't call them handsome because usually when we read the Christian sources, they're pretty pissed at what the, at least initial raids did. They are generous to each other, honor their guests, and treat well those who seek refuge with them. They do not allow anyone to annoy or harm these, and blah, blah, blah. Even Ibn Fadlan, the one we mentioned at first, who did not appreciate their personal cleanliness habits, praised them as being, open quotes, perfect physical specimens, close quotes, and described them as, open quotes, tall as date palms, close quotes. So, Scandinavians, you were tall already in the 9th century. If you remember, since they were telling us, oh, the Vikings weren't Scandinavians, but this is a description of a Scandinavian, if I've ever seen one. Because as a Southern European, I mean, I don't think the people in this period were tall as date palms, since we are still, generally, when compared to the Nordics, we are still not tall as date, because remember, this happens with the Romans too. Might mention a couple of things when we read Pomponius Mela, when we read Julius Caesar, and they tell us about the Scots or the Picts, or they tell us about the Gauls. It's always the most generalized idea. These are stereotypes. So it's true, but it doesn't necessarily represent everyone. It's just the most common feature. Sometimes it has to do with phenotypic traits, other times it has to do with culture, other times it has to do with customs, but usually means that a lot of people fit this description, which to me sounds exactly like a Scandinavian, not a Southern European, or reptilians. I mean, reptilians are tall too. So though the attire of the woman in the grave seems to be traditionally Scandinavian, her decomposed body made it hard for the researchers and archaeologists to determine her faith and ethnicity. Well, let me tell you this much. If the attire looked to be traditionally Scandinavian, I will go out on a limb and tell you that this Scandinavian body in Scandinavia, dressed as a Scandinavian, was most likely Scandinavian, thus making people question, was it a war spoil? A gift? A part of a traditional attire? Oh, shut up, a part of a traditional attire, you clown! You just said it was traditionally Scandinavian. It wouldn't be to be traditional, you absolute clown. Let me Google traditional definition. What a day. All right. Existing in or as part of a tradition long established. One ring is not long established. So by definition, this is not part of a traditional attire. It's ridiculous. They don't even know the words they are using. Maybe it means current. Oh, goodness gracious. Hey, okay, so that's making question. Yeah, question. Oh, was she a convert to Islam? We cannot confirm it. Yeah. Was she a Marjan? Was she a reptilian? We can't confirm it. It's an unfalsifiable statement. That's why you can't confirm it. Why aren't you asking if she was a Christian then? Since she clearly in that area, there is like 50 times the amount of Christian items. But I'm not going to do that because I'm not dishonest. She was most likely a pagan. See where the logic begins to unfold? Is that it's a two-tier system and double standards for the planet to see. We cannot confirm. We cannot confirm that she wasn't a Japanese samurai. We can't confirm it. Who knows? I mean, she liked swords. What do Japanese samurai like? Coincidence? I say no, sir. Anyways, Viking women were known to have sported various pieces of jewelry. I mean, you can remove Viking and say women ever. Oh, this is wonderful evidence. Anyway, evidence pertaining to the Viking converting to Islam includes a memoir recorded in the 16th century, and it says they highly valued pork. That's a fantastic convert if I've ever seen one, by the way. Even those who had converted to Islam aspired to it, meaning the pork, and were very fond of pork. which doesn't sound like a sincere convert to me. One of the very few mentions that we have, and it's specifically in the Iberian context, not in Scandinavia. Omar Mubaidn article states, open quotes, Vikings would make numerous raids against both Muslim and Christians. Man, that's a good Muslim if I've ever seen one. States in the Iberian Peninsula, eventually a community of settled Vikings, that's the one that I was telling you about, who converted to Islam in southeast Seville, would be famous for supplying cheese to Cordoba and Seville. Close quotes. Okay, that's it. That's the whole section about the Muslim Vikings. Nothing has to do there's nothing to do with Sweden, nothing to do in Scandinavia, zero. With that being said, one, when you look at any conversion that occurs, whether it be to Islam, whether it be to Christianity, whether it be to Buddhism, whether it be to whatever the heck, in the ancient period, oftentimes has a socio-political context. And that happens also to kings. I mean, yes, once the entirety of the Scandinavian region, the Nordic countries, become Christian and then people are born into the religion, yeah, those are Christians. But the early converts, when it's like a political person, someone who has power, and they are like, oh, you know, he's a pagan, he's a heathen. He worshipped Thor and Odin, but now he's found, he wants to be baptized. It's really difficult to know, is it a real conversion or is he doing it because it will give him power and benefit within the current society, because now you can marry someone from the super rich people among the Frankish, or now you can begin like alliances, so you can start trade routes. Like there is a whole context that needs to be considered when we look at quote-unquote conversions. I'm not saying it's impossible, it could be, but oftentimes we don't know. So once again, there are some very obscure mentions, but not in the Scandinavian context. It is like, and of course, the Iberian Peninsula, there were some areas that were Christian, there were some areas that were Islamic, depending on the period. And so, sometimes some of those interactions, because at the end of the day, think about it, whoever you are, you could be like, oh yeah, no, I converted, I pray to Jesus, oh, I love Jesus, I love him. But then when the person goes away, the trading finished, you go back home and you're like, yeah, Odin all the way. Likewise, the same thing could happen with Islam, but not in the Scandinavian context, and that is critical for this analysis. But let's read discoveries. In a research paper published on 23rd February 2015, archaeologists noticed that an excavation of a woman who seems to have been buried in the 9th century bore a silver ring with an accompaniment of purple stone. It should be noted that the ring itself was discovered in the late 19th century, yet only recently was a Kufric Arabic inscription identified. Always, anywhere. Ibn Fadlan is said to have noted the Rus Viking, yep, that was the ones in connection to Slavic, women bearing neck rings of gold and silver, yes. The ring combined with the unearthing of the Arabic coins and Muslim astronomy, yeah, the coins, of course, because, you know, people don't care if the coins were produced by, even today. I mean, do you care? Imagine that the dollars, right? It says, in God we trust. Do you not use the dollar then if you're atheist? Or if you believe in, if you're a Buddhist, do you still use the dollar? I guess you do. Likewise, if you find coins that are made of a precious metal, people will take them. It doesn't mean they're converted. Figures found on the astronomical clock in the Lund Cathedral in parts of Europe suggest that more studies and research should be done to uncover similar artifacts signifying European and Muslim civilization interconnectivity. So this is one of the things that they are pushing. You'll see that there is the messages down here. The idea is European and Muslim, they can interconnect and be happy together. Great, but it's not like that's what, I mean, are we forgetting the Crusades and all the wars and the stuff that happened, the invasions and the fights and I'm not trying to be an asshole about this. Of course I want to peacefully coexist with everyone. But then again, it's like they're forgetting an entire section of history where Christendom and Islam were sworn enemies. Again, this doesn't mean everyone. I know that there are subscribers to this channel. This is how much these people are clown. There was a guy that commented under my video, more than one in fact, but I want to underline this one. A guy commented under my recent video when I was clowning on the clowns, and he said, hey, I'm a Muslim, I agree with you, you're a based European, this is nonsense. I mean, the people that are pushing and twisting the stuff have fucked up so bad that they managed to get a Christian and a Muslim agree to clown on them. This is sensational. It's a life achievement at this point. But once again, this demonstrates that, of course, I don't have a problem. You can be Muslim, you can be atheist, you can be Buddhist, you can be whatever the heck. You don't hate the West, you don't hate us, you don't hate Christianity, you don't hate Europe. I have no problems with you. No quarrels, Not a problem. In fact, what did you cook? Oh, that's pretty cool from a cultural perspective. I might even be interested in what you have to share. But if you're one of those that hates everything about us and keeps telling us, and we're going to replace you, then sorry, get the hell out. So it's a person by person. It's a person by person. I do not want to interconnect with those. I'm more than happy to interconnect in the sense that we can, come in. Yeah, sure. I don't have a problem with the innocence. Never include the innocence, but anyways, you'll see. Examples such as the aforementioned demonstrate the mutually beneficent relationship Muslim and non-Muslim civilization have enjoyed for centuries, completely forgetting about all the wars. This is ridiculous. Furthermore, these discoveries indicate the vast multicultural wealth which lies in overlooked places as it's done in overlooked languages. Sure, I'll give you that one. Further study will inspire others to search for more evidence with regards to past civilization. Moreover, it will demonstrate that these magnificent discoveries did not originate from thin air. Rather, it is our misconception and lack of knowledge of those times that prevent us from unearthing other existing artifacts which may well be in plain view. It's your fault, guys. You're an ignorant if you don't think that Muslims were Vikings. If trade, political envoys, war, and immigration, amongst other factors, were brought to light, we may yet learn of additional contacts between the Vikings and the Muslim civilization. What is, by the way, the Muslim civilization? There isn't a single Muslim. You do understand that these are all different caliphates. They're all different nations, different ethnicities, in fact. Like, what is it? There isn't a single. And again, Islam is a religion. I don't know how to tell them that. Islam is a religion, such as the ring with an Arabic inscription on a Viking woman. The sensationalism and mystery created around this discovery could be argued to be born from the lack of information released or ellipsis on the subject. That's projection of what you're doing. We would like to conclude our article with this important note. Here it is, made by Dr. Anne-Maria Brennan, chair of CE40F. Okay, so here's the message. Let's read the message, guys. The ring was found in the 19th century, and only recently has the Arabic inscription been noticed. It makes you wonder how many other artifacts are out there that are undiscovered. I don't know why you're wondering this after the ring. There are thousands, if not millions, of manuscripts waiting to be translated and studied. What gems, what precious information, what insights into history are hidden within them. Europe is inundated with links to Islamic culture. Here's the message. Yet many still see the two as worlds apart. You do realize that that includes some of those Muslims. It's always a matter of like, oh, we Europeans, I don't know what it is with the self-loathing that I haven't got a clue. It's on both. Take a closer look and we see castles, fountains, books, ceramic, artifacts, tools, and many other things throughout Europe. All beautiful reminders of a golden age of Islam. This is dystopian. This is insane. The presence of this ring shows how prolific Islamic culture was, the only real thing they're saying. At one time, trade and education, true, were what people from all over traveled to the Islamic civilization for. They had great universities 1,000 years ago. The dirham was the strongest currency. The discovery of this ring is a wonderful souvenir of a time where people of all areas, where people of all background and beliefs lived and worked together in harmony. And here is the message. So, apart from the fact that they are changing history completely, but I would like to say this, between Europe and Islamic culture, can we live and work together in harmony? The answer is no, until they stop hating us. It is yes with those that have no problems with us. It's as simple as that. You're a good person. You have your little family, you immigrated legally, you live in my country, you respect my country, you have your own religion, you believe what you want, I believe what I want, I have no quarries with you. We can be friends. But those, you gotta tell them, the ones that break shit, tell them. This is a message for them, because I'm gonna tell you this. Yes, there are some people that are actual intolerant, racist, and whatever, but those are a minority. A lot of the people that these days are outraged are people that are angry and they are reacting to stuff that, unfortunately, bad apples are causing in our beautiful Europe. If the bad apples stop, I can assure you that also those elements within the European spectrum that now have a problem with the bad apples will also stop. It's a reaction. That's what it is. Whoever it is, chair of, you can be a sofa for all I care. You want to talk about harmony? Tell them. And then I'll be the first one to be like, yes, let's coexist peacefully. But those that come to get trouble, there will be no harmony for you. At this point, European brothers, unite.